Thank you, President Jack. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Randy Avent. Dr. Avent is the founding president of the Florida Polytechnic University. Dr. Avent joined Florida Polytechnic on July 7, 2014, just before the university officially opened its doors and began classes. He brings a wealth of experience as an administrator, scientist, scholar, professor, and researcher, whose background includes serving in leadership roles at some of the nation's top universities, such as NC State and MIT, and at the U.S. Department of Defense. He holds a PhD and a master's degree in biomedical mathematics and engineering, a second master's in electrical engineering, and a bachelor's degree in zoology. He and his wife, Terry, have 3 sons. And what I've learned about Dr. Avent that's not on his bio, he is an excellent woodworker, welder, and a dirt bike rider. Now, Randy, you may think this crowd is here for the final drawing of the 50-50 raffle with the winner takes all, but that's not true. You always draw a crowd, and we appreciate your time. Welcome.
Thank you, Alex. I appreciate that. Very nice introduction. Just to set the record straight, I knew that Rick was going to say something smart. And I'm sure all of y'all thought exactly what I thought, which was he was talking about his wife, Jackie, not about me. And Rick and I have a very good time together. I have just a very quick story that I'm sure Rick will appreciate. We were chatting one day about getting old, and Rick told me how old he was, and I said, Rick, you don't look anywhere close to that. You don't look that old at all. And he puffed his chest up and was all proud and everything. And I said, your head is so big that it stretches out on your wrinkle bars. So let's give an update on the university. And we're beginning to call this Florida Poly 2.0. And we'll talk a little bit why in a second. But I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this chart. We've all discussed this before. Why do we need a new university? And particularly why I do Polytech, and why we needed a new university is because Florida really wants to grow a high-tech, high-skill, high-wage economy. And it's very difficult for existing universities to do that because there's a bunch of impediments to doing that. So the best way to do that was to actually start a new university that was focused just on that high-tech economy. While Polytechnics came out of Europe, I think mostly Germany, and by definition, Polytechnics are applied science programs with a strong emphasis on practice-based learning. And that was a critical element of building this new economy here in Florida. The university has gone through almost all the business cycles that normal business startups. The university was a startup. When we started, we had absolutely nothing. And so we mirrored very much the same phases that industry goes through with every startups. We had a seed phase, which started around 2008 and ended in 2012, where there was lots of discussions about what the university was going to be, who was going to own it, what was its focus going to be. Those were sometimes very debated very hotly by all the different people, but the goal of that, of course, was to create the best idea for the university. In 2012, the governor signed the bill that created the university, and the starting flag began. And Parker came as the CEO and started building the university, and that was through a startup phase, where we had to build the facility construction, we had to put the programs in place, we had to get shared services agreements, and a number of other things. That was a very, very busy 2 years to get the university so that it could open in 2014. I showed up in July of 2014, right before the school opened, and we started a third phase at that point, which was the growth phase. And 2 big elements of the growth phase is we had to grow to 1,300 students in 2.5 years, which was a monumental task. The other big monumental task during that phase was accreditation, and we did achieve accreditation after we were told the summer of my 3rd year that we were accredited, and that was a big accomplishment for the university and everyone associated with it. Now that we've gone through that growth phase and we're no longer held to a requirement of having a certain number of students, we're entering what we now call a maturity or an established phase in the university. And that's a little bit what I'm going to talk about today. I am going to review just very quickly the first 3 years, which we call Poly 1.0, and those were about that growth phase and starting the university and getting it up and running. You've heard a lot about that, so I'm going to go fairly quick through that and then spend most of the time on this next 3 years, which is where we're maturing the organization. Of course, the first thing we did is we built an iconic main building, the IST building. In 2016, this building was voted as one of the 16 most breathtaking buildings in the world, according to architects. Imagine that, sitting in a cow pasture on the edge of Polk County. It was listed right behind the Greek Parthenon, and it has won over 20 global awards just in its first year of opening. It has won just about every award that a building can win. It's really a fabulous building. For any of you that haven't been out to see it, I encourage you to come out to see it because it's, I think, nicer inside than it is outside. But it's not about the building, it's about what's in the building. And so first thing is students. So here's the numbers for the students right now. This is spring of last year. Our total number of students was 1,378, most of those being undergraduate students. We put much more focus in building the undergraduate program over the graduate program, but we're beginning to turn our attention toward the graduate program. 94.8% of the students are in-state, and you'll see there at the very bottom is that the university was created as a statewide university. It's not a regional university. As a matter of fact, it's only one of 2 universities in the state of Florida that were originally created as a statewide university. Florida Poly and the other one was New College. All the other schools were created as regional universities. Although we're 94.8% in-state, we have 21 states and 16 countries represented at the university. So we're already getting good reach within the United States and outside the United States. Average class size of 25, student faculty ratio of 18:1. And on demographics, always a difficult thing for engineering schools. Racially, we're about the same as our peer institutions that are also engineering schools, which still is not good enough. We need to be better than that. And gender is also a big issue. And again, if you look at the programs that we have, we're about the same as other programs are nationally. But most of those other schools didn't put those programs within a lot larger set of programs. And so they have much more balanced gender ratio across the whole university. And those are 2 things that we're really working very hard to improve. Programs that we have 6 majors right now. We have a College of Engineering that has a computer engineering, electrical engineering, and mechanical engineering in it. We have a College of Innovation and Technology, and I can't wait to change that name to something that's more meaningful because innovation, I think, is just a well-worn out buzzword. And in that college, we have computer science, data science, and business analytics. The numbers there are the number of students and the percentage represented from each of those colleges. So you see that our largest major by far is computer science with almost 42% of the students being in computer science. And then the next largest major is mechanical engineering, which is traditionally the largest engineering major at most universities. 2 smallest majors are data science and business analytics. And they used to not be called data science and business analytics. When they came up with the names for the university programs, there were a number of mistakes that were made. For instance, mechanical engineering was called mechanical and industrial engineering. And you never want to call it 2 of those things because when you go through Avent accreditation, you have to accredit it for both programs. And so we had a mechanical and industrial engineering program that actually, quite frankly, was material engineering because most of the faculty that hired were material scientists. We've now fixed that, and it's a straight mechanical engineering department with some very good faculty in it. Our computer science was computer science and information technology, and those 2 things are different. So we moved information technology out, and we have a pure computer science program. Data science was originally called advanced technology. Who knows what that means? You don't get a lot of students when you have a program called advanced technology, and the first thing that they have to do when they go look for a job is spend 15 minutes explaining to the person what advanced technology is. What it really was an analytics program, and so we've renamed that to data science, which is a very, very, very big field these days. And then the last program, which is now called business analytics, was science and technology management. That's another program that really didn't have a lot of certainty around it. So we renamed that to a business analytics. And a big part of that is around supply chain and operations research. Fundamental thing that I've talked a lot about before here is that the curriculum walks a fine line between making sure that we teach theory, that we teach fundamentals, because that's really important to make sure that students are lifetime employable. But you also have to give them some practical skills and some practical problem solving, because as I say, I have friends that have real jobs, and when they went to work, their boss didn't, on the first day, tell them to go to their office, shut the door, turn their textbook to page 138, and do odd number problems. The boss tells them that they got an issue, they need to figure out what the issue is, they need to work together with a team, and they need to bring all the disciplines together, not just the 3 pages before the problems. And so we do a lot of project-based learning in the program. And of course, all this resulted in our first official large commencement. This is actually our 3rd commencement, but this is the first one that was the major one. So we had 220 of our inaugural graduates graduate on May 4th, 2018, and I'll tell you in a little bit more specifics about what they're doing and how well we did. So let me jump right into the next 3 years, and this is going to bounce around a little bit because we got a lot of things going on, and I just kind of want to hit some of the highlights of the things going on. One is that I said, of course, is that it's time for the organization to mature. So one of the things we've been doing this past year is focused very much on the organizational issues and how do we construct the organizations. We've done a reorganization with a very flat hierarchical structure. We have departments and divisions, and that's pretty much it. On the academic side, we don't have deans of colleges. We went around and we appointed people to be department heads if you're a staff, and to be a department chair if you're an academic institution. Those department heads and department chairs, we provided leadership training and management training to them both to help them develop to be better leaders and managers. We put in a much stronger performance-based management system. We did not have a very strong performance management system in place before. We hired an outside firm to come in and do a market study of all the positions at the university and tell us what the pay bands for each of those positions should be, so that we make sure that we're rewarding our employees appropriately. We've strengthened our compliance and audit functions to make sure that we're consistent with state mandates. The other big thing is that we started talking a lot more about what type of culture it was that we wanted to create at the university. So we had very deliberate conversations about what that culture should be, and we developed 27 fundamentals, and Dean Boren helped with this and gave me some guidance on it. And we believe that that's really important to the long-term success of the institution. And each week we talk about a new fundamental. And then last but not least, we've become much more efficient in how we operate the university. We went back, we reviewed all of our policies, and we took out a lot of the policies that just tied our hands and made us do things that we didn't want to do, that reduced our flexibility. We came up with a much more efficient approach to continuous improvement. And the thing that we're doing now is we've started a Lean Six Sigma program, and anyone within the university can apply to be in this Lean Six Sigma program if they come up with some processes that they want to improve. So a lot of focus on the organizational side. This, of course, causes a lot of noise because people don't like change, particularly when you're doing performance management and those types of things. But I think it's also very important to the institution. Also, a lot of improvements in the curriculum. We've been doing the same thing, looking at the curriculum. One of the byproducts of accreditation is when you put your application in, you can't change anything. And so when you're a brand new university and people came up with an idea of what they wanted to create, they put the application in, and then 2 months later you realize that, well, I got that wrong, but you can't change it until you finish accrediting. So we've been very fortunate that we have a great provost. He was the former provost of the Colorado School of Mines. And if you haven't heard of that, USA Today ranked that the #1 engineering school in the nation last year. And basically he's using the playbook out of Colorado School of Mines. So we have done things like created a common freshman year, so now freshmen don't have to choose a major till the end of the freshman year. That gives them a little bit more time to take some engineering classes and see what types of programs they like. We've increased humanities requirements because we got to make sure that we graduate very well-rounded students. We use common exams when we have multi-sections to make sure that all the faculty are teaching at the same high level. We've are redoing our project-based curriculum, And we're hiring a director of teaching and learning to make sure that the faculty are doing a good job teaching, but they also look at new ways of learning and to experiment some in the classroom. Big thing that we're doing is we're increasing the focus on making sure that we enroll a very high quality and diverse income class. You know, if you're a big institution, you can have an impact with reasonable quality. But if you're a very, very small institution like we are, the only way you're going to have an impact is to have really exceptionally high quality students. I think I've asked this question before. How many of you know what the average, how many students are at Caltech? Any ideas? 2,000 students at Caltech. Not very big institution, but tremendous impact. 4,000 students at MIT. Not very big, but tremendous impact. Olean College, one of the best engineering schools in the nation, 350 students, but incredible impact. So if you're going to be a small institution, you got to make sure that you have exceptionally high quality students. And this is too difficult to read, but on the upper left, we have the average SAT, and then the middle average ACT, and at the far right, the average high school GPA. And if you could read this, what it would tell you is that we have been marching those numbers up. Average income in SAT next year right now is a little over $1,300. That's the average, over $1,300. Average ACT is a little over 29, about 29.7. Average high school GPA 4.0. Right now, we are the highest quality student within the state. We have a higher quality student than Penn State, Michigan State, NC State, Virginia Tech, Cal Poly, and the list goes on, Texas A&M. So quality of student is very, very high. And what we're seeing is that we're evolving from an aid-based admissions to a reputation-based admissions. And it doesn't mean that we're not giving aid, because it's very important to give a lot of aid to get those students in, because they have lots and lots of options. But our view is what we do over the next 5 years, and the quality of student that we get in sets the tone for the institution for the rest of his life. If we get a mediocre student in now, it's going to be a mediocre university for the rest of his life. If we set the tone, get a really, really high quality student in, then it will set the tone that this is a high quality institution. One of the things that our provost saw was that when SAT got over 1,300, then the faculty could teach the programs they wanted to teach and students could keep up. And so that's what our goal's been. In terms of degrees, we're adding 3 new degrees starting this year. One in engineering mathematics, one in engineering physics, and one in environmental engineering. They may seem like an odd set of degrees. Engineering mathematics and engineering physics probably aren't going to graduate a lot of students. But the marginal cost of adding those is pretty small, because we already have physicists and we already have mathematicians there. But the other thing it does is it makes all the other programs much better and much stronger, because all of those programs based on physics and based on math. Environmental engineering program, another important program for a few different reasons. One is that we are own the Florida Industrial Phosphate Research Institute. And a lot of the research that's done there is around environmental and sustainability, so this is a way to bring FIPR in closer to the university. The other thing that environmental engineering does for us is a very high enrollment in that, and so it helps with our gender imbalance. Programs that under consideration are a concentration in biomedical engineering, a concentration in aerospace, and we are looking at maybe even possibly adding a chemical engineering. Right now, we're adding about 10 faculty per year. But as we add these new programs, that number will go up. We're about 65 full-time faculty right now. Most of them live in Polk County. And we'll see that grow by at least 10 each year. And as we add programs, that'll grow significantly more than that. But it's not all about the technical skills. The other thing that these students have to learn is they have to learn communications. They have to learn leadership. They have to learn how to work together with people. And that's not always the strongest suite of engineers. I'm sure you've always probably have heard me say before the way you tell an extroverted engineer is he looks at your shoes when he talks to you. And so one of the things that we're doing is trying to introduce leadership. And so we visited the Air Force Academy that very big into leadership, and we're looking at how we team with them to start developing leadership programs. within the university to make sure that we graduate well-rounded students. Projects and entrepreneurship are also a big part of what we do at the university, and this gives a little bit of examples of that. Last year, our students, well, last 2 years, the students won $30,000 in prize money. Matter of fact, we entered 2 Governor's Cup 2 years in a row, which is a statewide competition of all the universities in the state, and we're the only university that have placed it in 2 years in a row. We also had 2 teams to place in the Davalier, which is another statewide competition, and 4 out of the 5 finalists in the slingshot pole were from Florida Poly. And we have things all over the map. The very top one is a wild idea, which is a concussive firefighting robot that one of our students came up with and proceeded to set his garage on fire, but that's a different story while he was testing it. But that was a wild idea, and at the bottom is a virtual reality system that one of our students that had developed actually a virtual reality game that's already made $500,000 off of that game. And it's voted in the top 15 now for the last 3 or 4 years, his virtual reality game. But he's come up with a forensics crime training tool that's virtual reality, where you go into crime scenes and you have to solve the problem. You have to solve and find out who did it. We also have, we have a bicycle that does 0 to 50 in 6 seconds. We have upcycled cell phones. We have a student whose parents are in the jewelry business, and they advertise their jewelry on Craigslist and eBay, but it takes them a long time to figure out the cut clarity. They actually build a machine that you can put the diamond in it. It'll take pictures of it, it'll figure out cut clarity, color, and all those things, and then generate the ad and put it into eBay for you. And that was actually one of our listed, one of the ones that won. Smart catheter that detects, diagnoses infections when you put it in. A lot of industry interactions at the university, as we interact with industry in lots and lots of different ways. Right now we have relationships with well over 200 companies, and primarily they focus on student success, jobs, internships. All of our students have to complete an internship to graduate. That's a requirement of their graduation. And most of those center around jobs and internships. Just real quickly, how did our graduates do? We surveyed them as they went across the stage, and 94% of the graduating class that answered the survey either said they had a job, they had an offer that they were considering, or they were going to advanced education. 94%. That's a pretty good number for a first year. Most of those graduated computer science, 31%, and then 30% mechanical engineering. We're seeing the salaries range from about $50,000 to $70,000. We had about 25% of students that left the state and went out of state. We're seeing their salaries almost $20,000 more on average than the students that stayed in state. About half of the graduates went to large companies, and then a little over a quarter of the graduates went to small companies. We've been trying to focus on small companies because we believe the best way to build the economy here in the state of Florida is through a lot of those small companies, because that's where you get a lot of your growth. And so we've been really focusing and trying to work on small companies. The other thing is big universities that have lots and lots of graduates can't afford to spend time with small companies because they don't take enough of their graduates. They need to work with just really large companies that don't take a large number of their graduates. The only problem is that most of the time those leave the state. The largest company that recruits at the University of Florida is Texas Instruments. So most of the students actually leave and go to Texas. So we're trying to focus on small companies. And as I said, 76% of our students stayed in Florida, and the top Florida cities that they stayed in were Lakeland, Orlando, and Tampa in that order. So that's exactly what we're after, is trying to retain the graduates here. In terms of campus facilities, we now have funding to begin construction of the Applied Research Center. It's going to be another iconic building that's just to the west of the main IST building, and we should start seeing construction start on that. 85,000 square feet, gross square feet construction will start on that in the fall. But the big thing that we really need to do for the university to be successful and really be a national reputation is to grow a research park. I was at NC State most immediately before I came here. NC State had probably one of the most successful research parks of all universities, called Centennial Campus. Matter of fact, we did a Brandon study at NC State, and we found that Centennial Campus was known around the world, but NC State wasn't. Centennial Campus actually had more brand than NC State did. One of the things that made it so successful is located adjacent to the university. What you find with a lot of universities that grow research parks is because they're landlocked, they put the research parks 5 miles down the road. And at that point, there's very little interaction between the university and the industry and the research park. So having a research park that's adjacent to the university is critical to the success. And that's what they did. So the picture on your left is Centennial Campus in 1988, which is 2 years after I was there. If you look closely, you can see some of my dirt bike trails through the campus. And then the picture on the right is Centennial Campus just this past year. And it's grown tremendously through P3s, public-private partnerships, but also university building buildings on campus. And they're fully integrated into the campus. We have been in discussions about how do we work towards trying to get the property that's beside us, 4,500 acres up for sale, and we need probably about 500 to 800 acres of that to grow a research park. This is a very, very early version of what a research park would look like, but essentially what we would do is we would tear the fences down at the university. The roads from the university would go into the research park, and you wouldn't know where the campus ended and where industry started. We'd have buildings that would have industry in it, academia in it, and government, because it's important to have all three of those together to work on common hard problems. It would be a live, work, play environment, so it would have a town center. What we're finding now is that the younger generation doesn't like the big research campuses. They want to be downtown in an urban area where they can come out of their office and walk down the street and go to a Panera or Chipotle or some other restaurant. So it would have restaurants, it would have offices, it would have a town center. The other thing they don't want to do is they don't want to drive very far. So they want to be able to live in the area. So it would have a neighborhood with townhomes, but also a neighborhood with homes in it, which then would pull schools in, which would also pull play areas in, like golf courses, timber blocks for some of the trails. And I think that's very important to the success, and one of the things that we're really looking forward to working on trying to build. Of course, a big part of this is the connected and autonomous vehicle track, known as SunTracks. This is going to be a huge win for the state of Florida. As you all know, connected autonomous vehicles is really becoming a disruptor in this industry. It's going to change a tremendous number of industries. You almost can't come up with a number that's so big that if you looked on the web, you will find someone that's saying that's how big the industry is going to be. But numbers tend to be around $87 billion to $100 billion industry. Of course, one of the big problems with this industry is that they keep killing people. And they keep killing people because they're trying to bring it to market too quickly. And so they're taking technology that's not mature, that hasn't been fully tested, and trying to put it into cities, and it's proven disastrous. So one of the things that this SunTracks does is it allows us to actually test that in a very methodical way so that we can prove, much like what the airline industry does. The track is coming along well. This is an older picture, but if you drive by it now, they actually have a building out front. You can see in the bank closest to you, the tunnel, where you can go under the tunnel to get to the interior of the track. The outer rim of the track is for test and tolling. The inner rim is going to be where the autonomous vehicle stuff is. It's very interesting. We've been working with Florida Turnpike Enterprise on this. We have started an Advanced Mobility Institute, and we have a research program that's getting a lot of attention from the auto manufacturers, because we're doing things that are a little bit different than what everybody else is doing, and they seem to be really interested in it. And we're already, as a young institution, becoming known as an institution that has a lot of expertise in this area. In fact, we were invited to testify to the Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Technology. And we argued for creating an entity that's called a federally funded research development center, or a university affiliated research center, to help regulate this industry and do verification. And that was a really quick run through. Summary is that we're really pushing the quality of the students, because it's long-term success of the institution depends on that. We have to give still great scholarships to get those students in. Facility growth will continue. We're working very hard on that, and then the adjacent research park really is a critical element to the success of the university.
As I understand, on the weekends, you have programs for potential students to come visit the school. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Program for potential students to come
Yeah.
to come visit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very easy. That just goes through the admissions department. And so they have students come out all the time, and what they do is they'll bring a group together, take them around the campus and show them. So yeah, if there's any interest in that, just let us know. We'll connect you.
Dr. Avent, thank you so much for being here today. It's an exciting time for Polk County to have this right in our backyard, and we appreciate you bringing us the update. And please accept this as a small token of our